Alright, KD's going to the Rockets. Let's break down this blockbuster deal that's sending shockwaves through the NBA. Houston is getting Kevin Durant in exchange for Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, the number 10 pick in this year's draft, and 5 second-round picks. Now, looking at Houston's future seconds, most of them are actually going to OKC or they're involved in some complex pick protection scenarios. Honestly, I don't really know how all that works, but the logistics are wild. I think we all understand that with KD's age, he's 36 now, and his contract situation, Phoenix was never going to get an insane haul for the dude. But let's examine what they did get. They're getting their own pick back at number 10, which means they can immediately start thinking about this year's draft and adding young talent. Dillon Brooks brings that much-needed defensive intensity and physicality that Phoenix has been lacking. Offensively, Brooks has scaled back his shot attempts over the last couple of years, showing more discipline in his role selection. Then there's Jalen Green, and man, you talk about a wild card if there ever was one. He's obviously a bit redundant with Bradley Beal and Devin Booker on the roster, and I imagine the Suns would probably love to not have Bradley Beal's contract on their books right now. There were actually some rumors beforehand that Phoenix was looking to find a third team specifically for Jalen Green. Perhaps that's still on the table as the situation develops. It's kind of wild to see a 23-year-old player like Jalen Green getting moved for a 36-year-old. But here's the thing, that 36-year-old is way better at basketball right now. However, Phoenix is still out a lot of picks in this deal, many of which actually end up going to the Rockets anyway, which makes this even more interesting from a future asset perspective. Now, I don't want to completely give up on Jalen Green just yet. When his tough shots are falling, when he's getting downhill and snaking inside for those athletic finishes, the talent is absolutely there. The potential is undeniable. We've seen flashes of brilliance that remind you why he was such a highly touted prospect. But the consistency has been the major issue throughout his young career. The fit is definitely awkward with Booker and Beal already on the roster. Phoenix also desperately needs a better point guard and a more reliable center if they want to compete at the highest level. I'm not sure if they can address those needs down the road with their current asset situation. Dillon Brooks will definitely establish that defensive culture and physicality that Phoenix has been missing, but they're also losing some of the depth and versatility that made them interesting earlier in the season. The Rockets, meanwhile, do have that draft pick at number 10 that they're going to use in just a couple of days, so that's a nice immediate asset they can deploy. We'll definitely talk more about the draft implications when it's time for draft coverage. Now let's talk about KD with the Rockets, where Houston was able to, for the most part, maintain what makes them them. Their physicality, their athleticism, that defensive identity that they've built over the past couple of seasons. Yes, Dillon Brooks is gone, and that's a real loss in terms of on-ball defense and that dog mentality, but you still have Jabari Smith Jr. bringing that length and versatility. You still have Amen Thompson with his incredible athletic tools and defensive instincts. You still have Tari Eason, who's been a defensive disruptor off the bench. They just gave Steven Adams this new contract, showing their commitment to that physical, bruising style of play in the paint. And of course, Alperen Sengun got significantly better on defense this past season, which was one of the most encouraging developments for Houston's future. His improvement on that end of the floor has been remarkable to watch. I do think they could probably still acquire another good on-ball defender after losing Dillon Brooks in this deal. That's going to be crucial because while they have versatile defenders, they might need someone who can really lock down opposing guards and wings in crucial moments. But here's the thing, we all remember that first-round series against the Warriors where Houston really showed what they could be. The problem was they needed Fred VanVleet to take so many difficult pull-up jumpers because somebody had to create offense in those half-court sets. Sengun had to make tough scores on Draymond Green in the post, which is asking a lot of any center. Amen Thompson had to figure out how to get downhill versus that collapsing Warriors defense, with guys like Jimmy Butler and Draymond as elite help defenders waiting for him. The whole thing was a struggle offensively, and there was also that interesting subplot of the Warriors putting Quinton Post on Amen, trying to use size to neutralize his speed advantage. To Amen's credit, he dropped 20 points twice at the end of that series, showing real growth and adaptability. He also had 17 points on good efficiency in one of the earlier games, proving he could contribute even when the defense was focused on stopping him. But as all this was happening, the Rockets were desperately praying for Jalen Green to be that difficult shot maker they needed, give him the ball, let him create for himself in isolation, run pick-and-roll actions, the whole package. And besides that one exceptional game where everything clicked for Green, it just didn't happen consistently enough. The offensive burden was too much for their young core to handle against a seasoned, championship-experienced Warriors team. Now, KD can do all of that shot creation and more. I understand he's not the same explosive athlete he was in his prime, who would be at his age. But as far as being an efficient 20-plus point scorer with elite pull-up shot-making ability, you just had a massive improvement in that department. You're going from Jalen Green, who was legitimately one of the most inconsistent scorers in the entire league, to one of the most reliable offensive players in NBA history. I kept calling it the Jalen Green roller coaster, and that perfectly encapsulates what Houston was dealing with. He'd go on a 2-week stretch where he couldn't miss anything. Pulling up from deep, finishing through contact, making all the difficult shots that separate good players from great ones. Then inevitably it would be followed by another 2-week stretch where Ime Udoka was pulling him in fourth quarters because the logic was simple: if you're not scoring, then why do I have you out there? I've got better defenders, I've got more reliable players, I've got whatever else I need. That inconsistency was maddening for a team trying to establish an identity and build winning habits. You can't have your supposed go-to offensive player be such a question mark in crucial moments. It affects everything: your offensive spacing, your late-game execution, your overall confidence as a team. Meanwhile, KD has remained remarkably consistent throughout his career, even at this stage. This past season, he averaged 27 points per game on 64% true shooting. Those are elite numbers that very few players in the league can match. The reliability factor alone is worth its weight in gold for a young team trying to take the next step. But again, it is genuinely wild to see such an age difference in this trade. You're talking about a player who's just entering his prime years versus someone who's clearly in the twilight of his career. Luckily for the Rockets, when you have young foundational pieces like Amen Thompson and Alperen Sengun, you can feel comfortable getting much older at other positions. Defensively, KD brings a lot more than people give him credit for. Look, he can guard multiple wing positions effectively, he's an excellent help defender with his length and basketball IQ, and he can absolutely make a difference anchoring rotations. His defensive impact often gets overlooked because of his offensive brilliance, but Ime Udoka's defensive system should help maximize that impact. The Rockets still have several guys they can put on the opposing team's best player. Amen Thompson is really good on that end. His combination of length, speed, and instincts makes him a nightmare matchup for opposing scorers. Unlike his situation in Phoenix, KD won't have to deal with taking on too much ball handling responsibility because Houston has multiple playmakers. You've got Amen Thompson, who can initiate offense and push the pace in transition. You've got Fred VanVleet, who's more of a traditional point guard that can organize the offense and run sets. And of course, Sengun can handle the ball effectively in half-court situations, giving you multiple ways to generate offense without over-relying on any one player. You can have KD cutting off of Sengun actions, creating easy scoring opportunities with his movement and timing. You can run KD Sengun two-man games with handoffs and post-ups, with Sengun operating in the post and KD just one pass away, ready to capitalize on any defensive breakdowns. If you want to get a little more creative with your offensive concepts, you could even imagine some Fred VanVleet KD screen actions designed to get smaller guards switching onto Durant when the Suns' season was going well early on. I remember seeing some effective Tyus Jones KD combinations designed to get smaller guards switching onto Durant at the free throw line extended. Those were beautiful possessions that showcased KD's ability to exploit mismatches. Fred VanVleet is obviously a much better player than Tyus Jones, so you'd expect even more sophisticated actions and better execution. This trade should take significant pressure off of Fred as a pull-up shooter. Don't get me wrong, he's still going to have to take some difficult shots because that's the nature of playoff basketball. But hopefully, this can shift him more towards being a floor general and primary organizer, which I think better suits his skill set at this stage of his career. I've always felt that Fred's assist numbers underrate how good of an organizer and floor general he actually is. His basketball IQ and ability to read defenses is top-notch, but he's been forced into more of a scoring role out of necessity. The Rockets have been so reliant on the Fred Sengun pick and roll for these past couple of seasons, and while you're still going to see plenty of that action, KD just gives you so much more variety in your offensive attack. You'll still see Fred walking the ball up court and controlling tempo, but now you have multiple ways to generate high-quality shots. KD's gravity as a shooter opens up driving lanes for others, and his ability to score from anywhere on the court makes your offense much more unpredictable and difficult to scheme against. Now, the big question is, how long is this going to last given KD's age? That's the million-dollar question that nobody can definitively answer. I understand the logic from both sides. One player is significantly better than the other right now, and one of them has been pretty inconsistent. But it's still kind of wild to see a player as young as Jalen Green, plus additional assets, get moved for someone as old as KD. We all saw what happened in those playoffs against the Warriors where Houston's offensive limitations were exposed. They needed more shot creation, more reliable scoring, and KD certainly provides that. But how many years can you realistically expect from a 36-year-old player, even one as skilled and professional as Durant? The Western Conference is absolutely brutal. You could make this trade, have a fun and successful regular season, and then run into the Denver Nuggets in the first round, and we all know how that story typically ends. The depth and talent level in the West means that even significant improvements don't guarantee postseason success. We also can't ignore the fact that the vibes with KD's last couple of teams haven't been great. Now, not all of that is on him. There were organizational issues and chemistry problems that went beyond any one player. But when you look at the Brooklyn situation with the DeAndre Jordan and Jarrett Allen starting center controversy, Kenny Atkinson seemingly getting pushed out of nowhere, the reporting about Steve Nash's job security. Though I remember there being some pushback against those reports as well, then we know how things have been in Phoenix over the last couple of years. The team never quite clicked the way everyone expected. There were rumors about internal discord and the results on the court didn't match the talent level on paper. You can't completely ignore the track record when evaluating this move. But here's the thing, you also can't let past situations completely dictate future decisions. Every team's situation is different, every locker room has its own dynamics, and every coaching staff brings different approaches to managing personalities and egos. Ime Udoka has shown he can handle strong personalities and maintain team discipline, which could be exactly what this situation needs. The Rockets have built a culture around hard work, defensive intensity, and collective effort. They're not a team built around individual stars or personal accolades. They're focused on winning basketball games and competing at the highest level. That kind of environment might be exactly what KD needs at this stage of his career. Look, the Rockets desperately needed more offense, and they got one hell of an offensive player, there's no doubt about that. KD's ability to score efficiently from anywhere on the court, his clutch gene in big moments, and his overall basketball IQ are exactly what Houston was missing in those crucial playoff situations. The last thing I'll say is this, it would be really, really cool to see the final chapter of KD's career unfold on a team that actually matters, a team that's building something special and sustainable for the future. This trade fundamentally changes the landscape of the Western Conference and gives Houston a legitimate chance to compete with the elite teams in the league. When you have a proven closer like KD alongside the young, ascending talent they've already assembled, that's a dangerous combination that nobody wants to face in a 7-game series. The beauty of this move is that it doesn't sacrifice Houston's long-term future for short-term success. They still have their core young players, they still have that defensive identity and physical culture, and they're adding a player who can help them win now while also teaching their younger guys what it takes to compete at the championship level. KD's presence alone will accelerate the development of players like Amen Thompson and Alperen Sengun. Having a player of his caliber in practice every day, seeing how he prepares, how he approaches big games, how he handles pressure situations, that's invaluable experience that you can't replicate any other way. For Phoenix, this gives them a chance to reset and potentially address some of their other roster construction issues. They get younger, they get more athletic, and they get additional draft capital to work with moving forward. But for Houston, this is about seizing a window of opportunity. They have a special young core, they have an excellent coach in Ime Udoka, and now they have a proven superstar who can help them take that next step. In a conference as competitive as the West, you have to be aggressive when opportunities like this present themselves. The Rockets just made their move, and it's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out.